Good evening, Trump family. Welcome to Open Source News. Have a good night, everyone, and God bless you. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on that notifications bell so you don't miss a thing. Alright, the following is a collection of news from Patriots. Let's get into the news. Some wins you think worthy of note, but without further ado, here's our top 5 huge Patriot wins for 2022. Patriot win. Number 5, Elon takes over Twitter. I think Tucker Carlson said it best. Elon Musk's Twitter takeover was the single most consequential turn of events in the political sphere since the 2016 presidential election of Donald Trump. In fact, the restoration of free speech on the largest instant messaging platform on the planet will have ramifications that go far beyond anything that President Trump could have done. Even CNN recognized that the significance of Elon's Twitter takeover just beyond imagining. According to the Pew Research Center, more than 2/3 of Twitter's users say the platform is the most important source of news for them, making it the single most important social media platform for shaping national news narratives. Prior to Elon's takeover, when it came to the major issues of our day, from COVID to vaccines to mask mandates, election integrity, LGBT issues, when it came to all the major issues of our day, you and I were not allowed to hold or express an opinion different from that of woke orthodoxy as enforced by the legacy media and big tech oligarchs. Twitter allowed for absolutely no dissent. Just ask the tens of thousands of accounts that were suspended for being guilty of nothing more than the crime of having a different opinion from that of woke leftists on these fundamental issues. Now, that worldwide platform that woke leftists have used all these years to fabricate an artificial public consensus on those very issues. That platform has now been liberated to freely disseminate, celebrate, and champion those very dissenting opinions, which promises to have lasting civilizational significance beyond anything we can imagine. The Patriots win. Number 4, Biden's mask mandate was smacked down. The courts were absolutely brutal to bumbling Biden throughout 2022. But no more so than the humiliating smack down to Biden's mask mandate by a Trump-appointed federal judge, Judge Catherine Mizell, who sits on the District Court for the Middle District of Florida, issued a 59-page ruling declaring that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention had indeed exceeded their authority and failed to follow proper rulemaking procedures, and as a result, in that single decision, the bumbling Biden mask mandate particularly over federal air travel, crumbled. And like I said, this was just part and parcel of the courts brutalizing Biden's executive orders throughout the year. The courts, of course, struck down the CDC, the Center for Disease Control's attempt at playing landlord when it enacted to a federal eviction ban during COVID. The court struck down Biden's OSHA vaccine mandate for all workers in all industries and workplaces over 100 employees. The court struck down the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency's ridiculous attempt to try to enforce carbon emissions rules that Congress has repeatedly rejected through the legislative process. By God's grace, the courts have been sending a clear and unmistakable message to bumbling Biden and the Democrats when it comes to stepping over state and local jurisdictions. You shall not pass, Patriot. When number 3, Liz Cheney got fired. In August, Wyoming voters came out in droves to utterly and unequivocally vote the Queen of the Rhinos Liz Cheney out of office. Her Trump-endorsed challenger, Harriet Hageman, won the Republican primary with nearly 70% of the vote, 66% to Cheney's 28%. Put it bluntly, this was not simply a beating or a political defeat. Even her cheerleaders in the legacy media were forced to admit that Liz Cheney suffered nothing short of an absolute stomping. She was crushed. She was pulverized. She was utterly politically eviscerating. Her defeat was nothing short of an absolute and total humiliation for the single most odious, tone-deaf, self-righteous virtue signaling Republican in the entire nation. President Trump himself, of course, celebrated Cheney's defeat, saying, quote, "Congratulations to Harriet Hageman and her great and very decisive win in Wyoming. This is a wonderful result for America and a complete rebuke of the unselect committee of political hacks and thugs. Liz Cheney should be ashamed of herself, the way she acted, and her spiteful, sanctimonious words and actions towards others. Now she can finally disappear into the depths of political oblivion, where I am sure she will be much happier than she is right now. Thank you, Wyoming." And with Cheney's defeat, 8 of the 10 House Republicans who voted to impeach President Trump were officially gone for good from public office. Patriot win number 2. The GOP takes the House. As disappointing as the midterms were, they simply cannot possibly be considered a failure when the GOP unequivocally won control of the House when the Biden regime has officially come to a legislative end. From now on, Biden has to rule almost exclusively by executive order. And as we've seen, the courts have been shutting down his EOs left and right. Even better now, the likes of Jim Jordan and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz have subpoena power with oversight committees that will be going after Hunter Biden and the entire Biden crime family, corruption within the FBI, the Fauci fiasco, and the deliberate chaos at the southern border. Patriots win number 1. Roe v. Wade, overturned in an absolutely astonishing move. The new conservative Supreme Court did what was for leftist liberals the absolute unthinkable. They reversed Roe v. Wade, the drastically rash and legally absurd ruling that turned abortion into a fundamental constitutional right. But after 40 years of conservative activism at the grassroots level and in the courts, Roe v. Wade was officially and irreversibly overturned in 2022. It was without question the single most significant conservative victory in generations, and the reversal of its impact will be with us for generations to come. And some significant news: not everyone was interested in knowing what was in President Trump's tax returns. But we are a news program and we must report the news whether we like it or not. Well, the Democrats may not be liking what is coming down the pike. Because of this, Republicans in the minority on the U.S. House Ways and Means Committee declared today that there had been no legitimate legislative purpose for the Democratic majority to release Donald Trump's tax returns. And they warned that they may regret it sooner than they think. It was the first time Congress had ever obtained and released the federal tax returns of private individuals. Democrats claimed that they needed the returns as they considered future tax legislation. But the former president argued in court or to the Supreme Court to no avail. The Democrats are overstepping the separation of powers. Today, the committee released 6 years of Trump's returns from 2015 through 2020. And a separate 17-page minority report, the dissenting Republican minority, pointed out the Democrats admitted they had no legislative purpose for releasing Trump's taxes. And I quote, "Most importantly, the committee's majority's it is apparent from the proceedings that the committee majority set out with the goal of obtaining and publishing the former president's full tax returns. Everything since then has been a search for a rationale or justification that will be acceptable to the courts. So once again, this is the old show me the man, I will find the crime, I will show you the crime. They wanted to go after President Trump. They wanted to get his tax returns and release them. Everything they did was to try to find a justification to the courts. For that purpose. There was no legislative purpose for it. Committee Republicans are not focused on whether the former president should have made his tax returns public, which has been tradition, nor our committee Republicans focus on the accuracy of those tax returns. That is for the IRS to determine in the ongoing audits of the former president. Committee Republicans are concerned that this politically motivated action unleashes a dangerous new political weapon reaching far beyond the former president, and overturns decades of privacy protection for average Americans going forward. The new precedent is that the chairman of the House and Ways Means Committee and the Senate Finance Committee have nearly unlimited power to target and make public the tax returns of private citizens, political enemies, business or labor leaders, or even Supreme Court justices. No party in Congress should hold that power. Totally agreed. The bottom line is that they do it to President Trump, a multi-billionaire. What stops them from doing it to you, to me, or to any Joe Schmo out there? No individual should have the power to embarrass, harass, or destroy a private citizen, their disclosure of their tax returns. But the committee majority has demonstrated that the tax writing committees do have that power. And unfortunately, the Supreme Court upheld this action by the Democrat House and Ways majority. After nearly half a century, the political enemies list is back in Washington, D.C. And the committee's actions in December of 2022 will unleash a new cycle of political retribution in Congress. It didn't have to be this way. Despite warnings about the long-term negative consequences, Democrats move forward anyway. This development will simply make our politics more divisive and partisan. Even Democrats will come to regret this, and they may regret it sooner than they think. Folks, do you think that Republicans are just gonna go, okay, now, this is okay. Then now we want to see Nancy Pelosi use tax returns and make it public? Here is a sad reality. The Republicans now can go after their political opponents with this same tactic. But they won't put your opinion down below. Do you think the Republicans should fight fire with fire and play dirty and nasty like the Democrats? Well, here's what's going to happen, folks. Nothing's going to happen. The Republicans are going to rightfully, I think, take the high ground on this and say, look, two wrongs don't make a right. And this is one of the ways that the Democrats in the Marxist get away with it. First of all, they're backed by the Unit Party. So they're backed by even their Republican comrades masquerading as conservatives. But also they are shielded by the fact that we are not going to call I might say our supposedly representatives in the Republican Party are not going to stoop to their level. And they're not going to do the same things they do. And they're also not going to go after those who did wrong. In other words, they're going to get away with it. Like they get away with everything else. And they will continue. We will not see the Republicans releasing the tax returns of other people, because they're going to label it, and I think rightfully so, as unnecessary political persecution, and they don't want to be in that business. And because they don't want to play dirty, the Democrats will continue to crush and some other Republicans because they do play dirty, and there are no consequences for their actions. Alright, folks, Epic Times today is talking about the upcoming health crisis in America. And it's not exactly what you think. America is facing a health crisis, and it isn't made up of bacteria or viruses. Instead, it's an impending medical insurance meltdown. There is an expectation that as of January 11th, an estimated 50 million Americans will begin to lose their health coverage. The reason is that after 3 years of the CV-19 public health emergency, the shield of continuous coverage offered by Medicaid and the Children's Health Insurance Program CHIP will end once the state of emergency expires. Regular income requirements and restrictions will apply. This will disqualify millions who have benefited from congressional legislation passed in 2020, preventing disenrollment for the duration of the pandemic. Healthcare administrators are already bracing for the fallout as the end looms large. So unless for some reason they extend it, what should they do? That means that they have to continue Title 42. It's going to be the fit hitting the Sean on January 11th. Speaking of diminishing, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve fell to its lowest level since 1983. Since Reagan was in office, as oil and gas prices once again started to rise over this last week. The Biden administration has tapped over 240 million barrels from the SPR Strategic Petroleum Reserve this year to lower domestic gas prices, which have been rising since Joey was installed. By the way, a lot of this oil is finding itself where it shouldn't in Asia and China, but that's a seminar for another time. Joe Biden first announced his plan to release oil from the National Reserve on an emergency basis on November 23, 2021, as part of a major effort to moderate the price of oil and lower prices at the average corner gas station. The SPR was established when Congress passed the Energy Policy and Conservation Act back during the '73 oil embargo for emergency shortages, active terrorism, and natural disasters. Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Biden ordered the release in March of the first 30 million barrels out of the 180 million initially intended to be tapped from the SPR in 2022. Now, of course, Republicans and other analysts in the energy space have been critical of the plan, arguing that does little to lower gas prices and makes the United States more vulnerable to major supply disruptions in the future. All by design, folks, we have less reserves. They wouldn't let a Trump refill the reserves when the prices were really low. Isn't that something? Oh, by design, folks, make us subject to OPEC and other foreign forces when we should be 1,100% energy independent, like we were under President Trump. Nothing much more to say there except that the emergency oil stockpile, which is managed by the mismanaged Department of Energy, tumbled to 375 million barrels as of a couple days before Christmas. And that's the lowest it's been since 1983. December 30, 1983, to be exact, when it reached 378.3 million barrels. Nothing to see here, folks. But guess what? That's not the only thing that's tumbling. Stocks stumbled. The markets closed for the year. Today is the last trading day. And the markets saw the worst annual drop since 2008. Stock markets were wrapping up their worst performance in years on Friday, before heading into 2023 under recession fears following high inflation and rising interest rates. European indices closed their final sessions of the year in the red. Wall Street headed in a similar finish. Frankfurt was down 12%, Paris was down 9.5%. London was up 0.9% because of the higher energy prices, so that helped the energy sector are getting bullied a little bit. And Wall Street faced its worst annual drop since 2008. With the S&P 500 index down 20% and the tech-heavy Nasdaq losing 30% in the final hours of trading of the year. Another big loser. I love how Breitbart put it: bad luck, Zuck. The metaverse is tumbling. Facebook was so worried about canceling people and being woke that they missed everything. Facebook was on fire. They were on top. They lost relevancy to the Chinese spy app known as TikTok. They lost a lot, and so Zuckerberg goes, "Oh, we'll go on his metaverse thing." Yeah. VR virtual reality headsets? Well, Zuckerberg and the metaverse Meta Facebook is facing a troubling future. Worldwide shipments of VR headsets and augmented reality devices dropped more than 12%. In 2022, they're supposed to be going up, they went down. Zuckerberg, you suck. And you and your crappy company that canceled me for no reason deserve everything that you get. Thank you very much. WWG1WGA. Give me your thoughts.